miles an hour, and we shot it in slow motion. You'll notice at this speed, the front end starts to plow. But with that big 8-banger up front, we had enough power to kick the rear end out and feather it through the corner with a reasonable degree of control. For a soft-sprung car, body roll was not too bad. The riding qualities were excellent. Even on rough dirt roads, the jolts were dampened before they got to the interior, as was the noise level. This car is quiet. We had this car quite a while, and many people commented on the styling. It's fresh and exciting. So are the many improvements. As my old daddy said when I drove him to the local cigar store, "This is a Ford?" Different from the standard Charger. How hot is the Hemi? Will the suspension system handle all that power? Well, these were just a few of the questions that our road test crew asked the day they wheeled a new cherry red Charger 500 onto our test track. This is obviously the car the Dodge boys designed for Daytona. Most of the supercars we test fall in the intermediate class, but this big full-size sedan tossed out some big surprises. This car would have to be placed somewhere at the top of the supercar ladder. During the time that we had the Charger 500, I couldn't help but ask myself, where do you draw the line? Where does the docility of a street machine end and the fury of a full-blown race car begin? That line seems to be getting narrower each year, and this Hemi Charger is right on the border. The exposed headlights mounted in the flush grille distinguish the 500 from the standard Charger. Hood lines remain the same with the sculptured insert panels housing the directional indicators. To make this body a little slipperier for the super speedways, the stylists did away with the rear window tunneling effect in favor of the more aerodynamically correct fastback trend. Apparently at high speeds, a vacuum would form in the tunnel pocket, and on the high bank tracks in rebel country, this could mean 2 or 3 miles an hour extra. This Charger, like the standard model, rides on a 117-inch wheelbase with a 59.5-inch front tracking width and 58.5 in the rear. With this 4-letter exciter hung on each side, you won't find too many takers at the traffic lights. This is one of the quickest ways I know of to do your thing. 426 cubic inches topped by hemispherical combustion chambers delivering 425 horsepower. That's about 1 horse per cube. And if that doesn't excite you, you better check your pulse. Accessibility to the trunk area leaves quite a bit to be desired on the standard Charger. But on this 500, the opening is even smaller. One of the crew members asked, how come they put the glove compartment in the rear? The bucket seats, as in the past, are great. They give excellent support, and they're very comfortable even on long trips. Legroom up front is plentiful. This, however, was not the case in the rear. The seating was all right, but you have to find some other place for your legs. But if you are uncomfortable in the rear, all you have to do is look at this beautiful dashboard and you forget all about it. No lights, all gauges. It makes the driver feel kind of necessary. And we still feel that this torque flight transmission is the best in the business. What a getaway car. 30 miles an hour in 2.8 seconds. I think it was going 45 miles an hour when we left the line. The clock said 4 seconds flat. The third time out of the hole, our driver accelerated a permanent smile on his face. He had 60 in 6.9 seconds, and that's fast enough to wipe the stripes off. With this street rubber, we had more wheel spin than a Las Vegas roulette table. Our best quarter-mile go was 14.1. For binders, we had discs up front with drums in the rear. From 30 miles an hour, it took 40 feet to stop. Pedal fade was about average. There was quite a bit of heat buildup, but those 11-inch discs up front dissipated it rapidly. From 45, we shut down in 71 feet. We tried about 7 or 8 65-mile-an-hour panic stops. Our average stopping distance was 178 feet. After a workout like this, the heat was intense, and we had to stop and let them cool down. When we decided to take this blow-your-mind special through the turns, we had to keep reminding ourselves that this was a full-size sedan. In hard cornering, I gained an all-new respect for this Mopar suspension setup. In the front, they employed wishbones with a big fat torsion bar. In the rear, leaf springs with a live axle. Chrysler engineers have achieved the delicate balance of excellent handling and a good, comfortable ride. We find that many of the supercars today have a strong, beefy suspension system, and they ride just that way. You get a little bit tired of having your back teeth rattled loose every time you drive over to the corner drugstore. Body roll was not excessive, and recovery out of a drift was excellent. We filmed this 70-mile-an-hour turn in slow motion. You'll notice that coming into the turn at high speed, the front end starts to wash. But with that Hemi Hummer in the forward compartment, you can put your rear end anywhere you want it. Believe me, firing this car through a corner in a four-wheel drift with power on is a type of thrill that's not defined in your Funkin' Wagnalls. Whenever we'd drive it to our downtown offices, the parking lot attendants would move it every 5 minutes just for the fun of starting it. It only got 7 miles to the gallon, and it was noisy. But the Charger 500 is the kind of a car that quickens your pulse and puts a fire in your guts. And really, that's what supercars are all about. Boulevard Bully. Anyone that wonders if the Plymouth division is still in the high-performance picture need only take a look at their lineup for '69. With a powerhouse Cuda, Roadrunner, and this GTX, it requires very little imagination to visualize the Mopar banner in the competition circles. Our GTX and the Roadrunner feature this performance paint treatment, 2 24-inch stripes of black textured non-glare paint on the hood. This sporty performer rides on 116-inch wheelbase with a front tracking width of 59.5 inches and 58.5 in the rear. The horizontal bars running between the dual exposed headlights give the grille a broad, clean look. The overall width is 76.4 inches. The GTX signature is conspicuously displayed on the rear quarter panels. Our GTX had the cool air induction system called the Air Grabber. On the Roadrunner, it's called the Coyote Duster. And it really works to increase engine efficiency and performance by pushing either outside or inside air into the engine. Trapdoors designed to alter the flow of air are operated by a Bowden cable installed under the instrument panel. At high RPMs, this 440-incher breathes great big chunks of atmosphere through one Carter 4-barrel carburetor and delivers 375 horsepower at 4,600 RPMs. The sit-down area in front consisted of 2 very comfortable buckets giving excellent back support. With over 41 inches of legroom, even the tallest guys were in good shape. This was not the case in back, but then it never is, unless you buy a limousine. Anyone performance-oriented enough to enjoy gauges and numbers and stuff like that has to flip over this dashboard. It makes the driver feel as though he's running the thing, not a computer. When we got to the track, we found the pylons all set up, so we made these runs first and found that the GTX has a crazy set of legs. Our driver whipped it through at about 50 miles an hour, and at no time did the body leave the wheels. So you can check body roll for yourself. This is the way it looks from the inside. This head-on run was filmed in slow motion by one of our more courageous cameramen. For a 4,000-pound bomb, this car leans very little and showed excellent rebound and recovery. The goldfish bowl on the front seat slopped over a little bit, but the car hung in beautifully. Down the quarter-mile route to Squealsville, we had 30 miles an hour in 3.2. It ain't no Hemi, Mama, but it's quick. We nailed 45 miles an hour on the clock in 4.4. And Martin weekend wonder, it wasn't. But for a 2-ton strictly stocker, it came out of the hole pretty well. Our 60-mile-an-hour run tripped the clock in 7.1 seconds. In the stop department, this was the best Plymouth we ever had. Braking was far straighter and distances shorter than any of the 68 models. From 30 miles an hour, 34 feet. We had power discs up front with a single piston operation. From 45 miles an hour, it took 55 feet to stop. We made several 50-mile-an-hour stops and noticed that brake fade was only slight. The binders were hot when we made this 65-mile-an-hour stop, and she still shut down in 179 feet. The GTX is a strong performer, and we gave it a hard workout. We do this every year. And this heavy-duty suspension system has a big, beefy feeling that invites hard cornering. And the wide polyglass tires give an even greater margin of security. In the front end, we had wishbones with a big fat torsion bar, and under the rear end, they employ semi-elliptic leaf springs with a live axle. Steering is about neutral at moderate speeds. However, in high-speed cornering, there's a slight hint of oversteer. But with the use of the throttle connected to that big 440 cubic incher up front, you can bring it through in an easy 4-wheel drift. We took our tester over many miles of rutted dirt and gravel roads, as well as city driving in heavy traffic, and never experienced any feeling of fatigue. However, it was on the track at high speeds and hard cornering that we gained real respect for the GTX. They glued this car together well, and after we twisted it every way but loose, it was still ready to go. If you're a car buyer that falls in the family category, and you still have a strong zest for living, this one could be your bag. It's the kind of a car that can add a sparkle to even the most monotonous drive. The GTX has always been a good car, but the 69 is the best one yet. The English have been building and racing fine machinery for a long time now. And we feel that with the Jaguar XK, they reached a peak. It's a fine touring car with a true racing personality. When you climb in, you suddenly feel as though you're surrounded by a Swiss watch. With Jaguar precision and perfection, well, it's the name of the game. It's an under-promoted car by American standards, and we were more than eager to unleash it on the track. This is the slinky, silken cat known as the XKE, a 4.2-liter coupe with a wallop of a Missouri mule and snob appeal that far exceeds its price tag. And if performance sold for $10 a pound, this car would cost a fortune. The Jaguar Manufacturing Company has been building good cars for many years. With this one, they've reached a pinnacle. No, we didn't run into a bulldozer. That's just the way you get to the goodie department. And this is the mill that makes things happen. A twin overhead cam, 6-cylinder, inline engine with 258 cubic inch displacement and 265 horsepower. The engine is dynamically and statically balanced and is fed by these 3 side draft carburetors. Hey, that instrument panel was the greatest thing since Bromo discovered seltzer. All those perfectly calibrated gauges told us that this car was built for more than a Sunday drive, and it had everything but an altimeter. Those bucket seats are real, honest engine leather. And they give you the kind of support that makes you feel as though you were built into the car. They're adjustable, as is the steering wheel. Through the pylon course, we found that those people really know how to build handling into a car. We closed our spacing between the pylons to 45 feet and still ran them at 55 miles an hour. In the front, our XKE had independent suspension with traverse wishbones and torsion bars. Side roll, hardly perceptible. Our cat came off the line like Mr. Clean looking for dirt. 0 to 40 in 3.1. We sizzled a 0 to 60 run in 6.2 seconds with quite a bit of wheel spin. The shift linkage was a positive delight. It had a very short, precise throw, made running through the gears as smooth as whipped cream. Our 0 to 80 run took 10.9 seconds. We tried for a top-end run, but at 130 miles an hour, the front end felt awfully light, and we were losing feel of the road, so we backed off. In the stop department, she shut down beautifully. We had Dunlop disc brakes all the way around. At 30, it stopped in 33 feet. These discs had the quick change pads and twin master cylinders. At 45, it took 58 feet. Nosedive is hardly noticeable, as was brake fade. At 70 miles an hour, we stopped in 169 feet. As you can see in our braking tests, the Jag made good straight-line stops. Well, those four-wheel disc brakes give a lot of driver confidence, especially at high speed through the corners. Our kitty was quick through the turns, and those claws dug in. The rear suspension employed a fully independent, self-contained unit mounted in a pressed steel crossmember attached to the body by pairs of rubber blocks on each side. Through the S-turns, we noticed rebound and recovery were excellent. Pairs of coil springs, each enclosing a telescopic shock, give the suspension medium at each wheel. Steering was about neutral, and our driver found it quite easy to throw our little red bomb into a four-wheel drift and control it all the way through the corner with the throttle. Jag with the driver aboard weighed over 2,600 pounds, which for its class makes it too heavy to race. On the other hand, it has too much speed for the public roads, but it does make for a whale of a touring car. It's as docile as a kitten in traffic, and yet gives out with a wild roar on the track. With that great suspension system, it floats over bumpy roads like a limousine, and anything up to 120 miles an hour is as smooth and easy as a velvet hammer. Truly, it is a different breed of cat. To an automaker for the most improvement in any one year, I think our choice would be American Motors and the 1971 Javelin. When it was first introduced, it represented a radical departure for the conservative stylists at American. But it was the necessary elixir to bring their sales charts into the upward swing. All the changes are not in the looks department either. It's a strong performer as well. In fact, on the track, this new Javelin offered many surprises.
Major changes for the automakers go in 3-year cycles. Thus, for 1971, the Javelin received all new sheet metal, and the hats-off job for styling would have to go to Dick Teague. Probably the most noticeable changes are the bubbled front fenders, slightly reminiscent of the Corvette. However, this similarity ends there, because the Javelin is a handler. Our tester had the top-of-the-line 401 cubic inch V8 delivering 330 horsepower with 430 foot-pounds of torque at 3,400 RPMs, linked up with a 3-speed automatic transmission. Our Javelin wasted no time coming off the line. It took 2.9 seconds to hit 30. For shoes, we had the Goodyear E60-15 tires. They dug well, and our second run wrapped 45 in 5 seconds flat. Essentially, this 401 is a stroked 390, and it did well in all of the acceleration runs. 7.1 seconds after we left the line for the third time, we hit 60 miles an hour. Our heavy-duty suspension paid off well in the pylon runs. The car showed some body lean, however, it did not feel excessive on the inside. Recovery seemed fairly smooth, but rebound was a little violent as we neared the end of the run. Here's a head-on look in slow motion. We shortened the distance between the cones and took this run at 45 miles an hour. Build-up was intense. From 50 miles an hour, it took 98 feet to stop. We had discs in the front with drums in the rear, and they were hot. After 3 panic stops, the pedal faded almost to the floor. This 70-mile-an-hour stop brought us to a halt in 209 feet. The stoppers left a little to be desired. In 1970, the Penske-Donahue combination brought the Javelin into the winner's circle in several of the SCCA Trans Am races. And some of the knowledge gained through racing was definitely reflected in the handling of our test car. This car is not the most forgiving we've ever tested, but the weight distribution and power combinations were excellent. In hard, high-speed cornering, some near race characteristics become prevalent. You have to be right on entering the turn, at which point mild understeer sets in. But once into the turn, it feels like a rum runner special. You ring it through with power on in a 4-wheel drift. The Javelin has coil springs up front with semi-elliptic leaves in the rear, sway bars fore and aft, and traction bars at each rear wheel. This heavy-duty suspension system was an excellent compromise of good handling on the track and a comfortable ride on the highway. A few years back, a teenager whose father owned a Rambler was never too excited about acquiring the family car for a date. But AMC is fast becoming a young company. While they're a long way from dominating the muscle car field, cars like the Javelin at least make them a respected member of the family.
The Dodge Charger, all the bells rang. It was different and to some degree exciting. Our feelings have not changed since that first introduction. For my money, it's the year's best styling job to come out of Motown. Somebody finally had enough originality to build a car that doesn't look like it came off a GM drawing board. Well, this alone puts it in a bracket by itself. But it doesn't end in the styling department. When you get this Dodge on the track, climb in and crank it up. Hey, it's a happening.
If you like cars, and in particular appreciate styling, this 1971 Charger has to grab you. And the SE version, meaning special edition, is the top of the line. At least it better be. It carries a whale of a window sticker. Our tester ran well over the $5,000 mark. Automatic headlight washers were on the list of every conceivable option. Overall handling was improved by these G60-15 Goodyear polyglass tires. In the muscle compartment, we had it all. The 440 cubic inch V8 delivering 370 horsepower at 4,600 RPMs. This one had all the quick sounds on On our first run, we had 30 miles an hour in 2.4 seconds. Second run felt even better. When we buried our foot in all those Mopar goodies, we rang the bell on 50 in 4.4 seconds. With that wide rubber hop, the dig was better, and the slapstick automatic shifter enabled us to run the RPMs to around 5,500, which we found to be our best shift point. 70 miles an hour came 8 seconds after we left the line. The braking department is not the strongest port on the Charger. From 30, it took 34 feet, but then you can almost equal that by dragging your foot. It was the panic stops that left a lot to be desired. This 50-mile-an-hour stop scraped rubber for 105 feet. The pedal faded noticeably, and you could smell them all over the racetrack. We ended the forward motion on this 7-mile-an-hour stop in 212 feet. Rear axle hop was wild. Heat buildup intense. Pedal fade almost to the floor. What our car lacked in the braking department, it more than made up for in overall performance and handling. Our highway evaluations showed the SE to be a most able and comfortable